In the roller coaster ride that US President Donald Trump's tariff proposals have become, a sense of tiredness has crept into companies and countries that are trying to maneuver their way around these tariffs. China played ping-pong with the US for a while till it decided it wanted no more of it. It said it would not react to any more escalation of tariff percentages by the US and referred to the whole tariff proposals as a joke. Given the current scenario, is there any way some sectors in India could benefit, maybe short-term, medium-term, long-term? Let's take a look. Hello and welcome back to Business Matters with the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. There have been some strong opinions on how US's tariffs could have a debilitating impact on the Indian economy and some voices that point to a sliver of hope that India might actually benefit. If you leave that aside for a moment, what seems a near certainty is that GDP growth for the US, China, India and the rest of the world are estimated to be impacted somewhat significantly. Several agencies have downgraded India's growth estimates already for financial year 2026. A few days ago, ANI cited a UBS report as saying that US GDP growth would be 0.4%, down from its earlier estimate of 1.6%, and that China's would fall by 1.5 percentage points. It said India's goods exports could be impacted and that private capital expenditure could slow further as companies are in a wait and watch mode. The consolation is that our services exports could likely make up for any hit on goods exports and that our long-term macroeconomic story is intact. Let's take a look at electronics. Whether or not Mr. Trump brings back tariffs on electronics and mobile phones, he's actually paused them now, but he's promised to bring them back in some of there or the other. Whether or not that happens, the companies are bound to start shifting their electronic bases away from China. Apple is a case in point. In an article, Businessline quoted Pankaj Mohindru, Chairman, Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, as saying that it was time for India to start expanding capacity and that the long-term trend against China was robust. The ICEA represents electronics companies in India including Apple, Samsung, HP, Dell and Asus. Luxury car maker Mercedes-Benz India's chief, Santosh Iyer, pointed out that the long-term trend could actually work to India's benefit even though there could be some short-term setbacks. The toy sector in India is gung-ho about its prospects given that the bilateral trade agreement between India and the US is going apace. As we are recording this, US Vice President J.D. Vance is in India and they've actually set the terms of reference for this agreement to take shape. Another Businessline report quoted Fun School Chief K.A. Shabir as saying that with lower tariffs compared with other supplying countries, India could benefit with rising exports to the US. CEO of Scoodle's parent firm Shobit Singh has also indicated that India was on a good wicket for expanding toy exports to the US. Our country currently exports $190 million worth of toys annually to the US, while China's export value stands at $14 billion. So with tariffs giving us an edge, there is potential for quicker exports growth. Tata Steel chief T.V. Narendran has recently said that Tata Steel and some of its customers in the US are trying to seek exemptions for some products that Tata Steel exports from its UK and Netherlands bases to the US. Because some of these products, Mr. Narendran argues, are not even made in the US. But getting an exemption is a long shot. As former IIM professor T.T. Ramohan said in a recent article for The Hindu, quoting Mr. Trump, that if you don't have steel, you don't have a country. So Mr. Trump would be really keen on setting up steel manufacturing units in his own country than allowing imports at very low tariffs. Now, what exactly is China up to? China is noticeably engaging with the rest of the world to see if it can band together with them against the US. Chinese Premier Xi Jinping recently urged the European Union to join China to together resist what it called unilateral bullying by the US. Now, our Northern Asian neighbor has said in recent weeks more than just once that it was willing to engage with India to address the issue of trade deficits that we run with China, meaning that we buy a lot more from China than China buys from us. And though China has said this several times in the past, there is hope that China is actually willing to address this problem by buying more from India. The other thing that is likely to happen is that Chinese companies could be willing to bow to Indian rules, as some media reports suggest, such as holding only minority stakes in Indian joint ventures, because India is a major alternative export market compared to the US, and India could also serve as the market from which to export to the US for Chinese companies. China's own retaliation against the US in the form of tariffs or bans could actually work to the favor of other countries such as India. For instance, China has recently banned the delivery of Boeing aircraft. So when airlines place orders for aircraft from Boeing or Airbus in France, there is a long waiting period. So if one country says, the aircraft is actually ready to be delivered and one country says, no, I don't want it now, it can swiftly be redirected to other countries that are in the waiting line and yearning to have these aircraft in hand at the earliest. So that could work to India's favor. But there are other things where India could actually be suffering, at least in the short term. The immediate downside of US tariffs on China is that China may begin to dump products into other countries at very cheap rates. India had in March imposed anti-dumping duty on some Chinese products such as soft ferrite cores, vacuum flasks, aluminum foil, and trichloroisocyanuric acid to prevent dumping of these products by China on us. Earlier this week, India introduced a 12% safeguard duty on steel from China and Vietnam. Now, with US tariffs making life very difficult for Chinese firms and China's own economy slowing down, it is not growing as fast as it would like to or it was earlier. Now, with US tariffs making life difficult, Chinese firms could look to dump their products in countries other than the US at whatever price they can command, even if it means selling at a price lower than the cost of making those products. A case in point is the impact on the textile ecosystem in a small town called Pallipalayam in Tamil Nadu. In an article, my friend and colleague Rajasimhan says that viscose spun yarn or VSY is used in knitted and woven fabrics. In Pallipalayam, there are nearly 60 spinning mills manufacturing only VSY. The Indian Man-Made Yarn Manufacturers Association has said that the average selling price to weavers and knitters is about 198 rupees per kg. And they sell to these people in places such as Erode, Tirupur, Delhi and Punjab. But ever since the trade war with the US started, Chinese firms have been selling VSY at rupees 185 per kg. The sector has urged the government to consider an anti-dumping duty on imports of these products. So the answer to the question in the title for this video, could India benefit? Maybe, but unlikely in the short term. Assuming that US animosity towards China is here to stay, it is quite likely that supply lines could start shifting from China to other parts of the world, including India. But it is inevitable that in the short term, we are here to experience pain. A good example is the dumping of products across sectors at prices much lower than what it costs to make the product. And second, even if a particular sector is not immediately impacted by tariffs, for example, the IT services sector in India, it is dependent on a robust US economy. But even if the US economy is impacted in the short term for the worse, then the prospects for the IT sector become shaky. That's all we have for you folks in this episode. But like we mentioned in the last episode, Mr. Trump's tariff story is not yet over by a long shot. So stay with us and we'll keep giving you significant updates as they happen. That brings us to our Did You Know section. Across India, about 2,200 tons of VSF or viscose spun fabric are consumed by mills in a day. And of that, close to 2,000 tons get consumed in Pallipalayam, Tamil Nadu alone. And here's the quiz question for this week. What was a major export item from China to India in ancient times? And here's the answer to last episode's question. How many Nespresso coffee capsules does Nestle sell worldwide and where does it make them? Nestle SA sells about 14 billion Nespresso coffee capsules worldwide every year according to estimates. But every one of them is still made in just 3 factories in Switzerland. If the US does go back to the original tariff proposals after the ongoing 90-day breather, then imports from Switzerland to the US face a 31% tariff, which is much higher than in the neighboring European Union. Nespresso global sales amounted to about $7.5 billion in 2024. If you enjoyed watching this episode, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Until we meet again, have a lovely time ahead.